Okay, so, but then you said what?
They were done. They were done when we were all fucked up in the house. But he didn't give me paintings and say, "Here, hold them for me." These are all anything that I have. He did, when they were in the house. So these were done in my house or at my mother's or wherever we were, and he just left, and we were all fucked up.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's not something that he said, "Here, hold these for me. I did these yesterday or the day before." They were done, while we were all fucked up.
Yeah, and Jean-Michel, that was when, 79, 80?
Yeah, around that time.
Right, right. The latest would have been 81?
I don't know. Probably, maybe.
Yeah, I know it's hard, 40 years ago. Yeah, because there's some, you see, they're really kind of historic, because he did, of the drawings I have so far, I think 4 of them are really sketches for later paintings.
Well, he did. These were before he had money to buy canvases and everything. I mean, he used to rip apart my books, or he would walk in with rags that he found on the ground, or wood, pieces of whatever, and he just painted on them. It was just that they were just fucked up drawings that he was doing.
Right.
He was fucked up.
Actually, they're really it's crazy. They seem fucked up, but they're pretty cool. Like, it's really weird. Like, I know you're not an art person, but even in his being stoned, was he doing that? Was he doing, what kind of drugs was he doing?
He wasn't doing heroin at the time. Coke. He was doing coke, acid, pills, whatever we had. I mean, we did whatever we had. And at that time, there wasn't meth, and there wasn't, the drugs. There wasn't Special K. There wasn't GHB. There wasn't any of those drugs. There was like the drugs of that time, and we did a lot of acid.
Well, that accounts for several of the drawings, because they look like they looked hallucinogenic. Some of them.
Now, maybe he remembered what he drew at my house and then drew them in the paintings later on, because he didn't make big paintings, and he didn't have the capability of making big paintings, and he didn't even have the paints. That he had no money, and to go out and buy him paints and stuff like that. First of all, I wasn't going to go out and buy him a lot of paints or anything, because then he would start painting all over everything. So, the less shit that he had, the better it was.
Right. We thought, and it's hard to remember, but we thought he used white nail polish, or red enamel or nail polish, and white, what do you call it? White out. Do you think?
White out.
Did he use that?
Yeah, anything. He would use anything. Magic markers, highlight, anything, crayons, ink,
right.
pens.
And you remember any whiteout at your house, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, I had whiteout. Everybody had whiteout back then.
Right, yeah, because that's what we saw. And we saw what we believe is enamel nail polish used on some of the paintings.
Probably. He got into my nail polish, he got into my lipstick, he got into my makeup. I mean, he would draw with anything that was around, he would use to draw with.
Right.
And anything that fit in his pockets as well, because he would walk around with stuff in his pockets.
How is it? How was he? That whole thing about he would draw in anything, right? Anybody's house. Like, did he ever say to you, maybe I shouldn't have done that. It wasn't my house. Did he ever?
No, he never had any regrets, because he used to say, "Well, I'm going to be famous one day, so this is what it is." I mean, listen. How do I explain to my mother when she would come home from work and her refrigerator and her kitchen was all drawn all over,
yeah,
and stuff, and we would be high as hell. And she put us out, and we go up on the roof, and spend the rest of our day up on the roof, you know, laughing and stuff. I mean, because
Right.
you're too stoned to go outside.
Yeah.
But I mean, then she would be scrubbing everything off.
Oh, yeah.
My mother would clean everything off, and then he would come back like a couple days later and do the same thing all over again. He think it was funny.
And what did your mother say?
Oh, she wasn't happy about it.
But she was okay having him come in, though.
Oh yes, I mean he was my friend, you know.
Right.
You know, I mean that was my mother's house. I mean, what was she gonna do? Tell him I can't have my friends over?
Yeah, she must have thought he was just a little wacky.
So, yeah, well, she thought I was wacky too. I mean, she thought
Right.
everybody was wacky that I knew.
Right.
But she put up with it, and you
Yeah.
know, I mean. Yeah, I mean, we would be laughing on acid, and she'd start laughing, and she wouldn't know what was wrong with us, and we would laugh because she was laughing,
Right.
and you know, when we'd all be laughing, and then we think we better get out of here because it's like she's making us laugh too much, and she didn't even know we were laughing at.
Right.
I mean, it was like she didn't know what was going on.
Right. Right. I understand that.
As far as you know, she used to get pissed off because she said, "I gotta clean this all off now," you know. And he said, "Well, I'm not going to clean it. It's my artwork."
Right.
You know.
Right.
But if she knew how much he painted it all in the bathroom one day.
He did.
Yeah, he used to do that all the time.
On the
But,
walls?
I mean,
Where? On the floor?
Yeah, on the wall. He would do it on the wall. Like she would paint over the wall. She always had a bucket of paint to cover his stuff up.
Oh,
You know, he'd
jeez.
make little drawings all over. Like he'd go to the bathroom and sit on the toilet and then start writing on the wall.
Oh. Oh,
You know, to
jeez.
keep himself busy.
Right.
You know.
Right. That's wild.
And because I was so bulimic back then, between my puke and his drawing,
Yeah.
she used to have a fit.
Right. Right.
You know, because he'd be drawing and I'd be sitting eating a gallon of ice cream because I was going to go throw it up.
Right. And he was,
So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. He was about 18 then, I guess. 19, 18.
I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, he used to be like that all the time. I mean, he'd grab your clothes if he could. He'd grab your clothes and draw on them. You
Right.
know, it's like
Right.
I probably have T-shirts and stuff. I mean, I like a lot of stuff I threw out because I mean it was like I considered it ruined. I mean, who knew? I mean, he was
Right.
he was a kid.
Yeah.
He was a kid that drew on everything.
Right.
I mean, that's what I mean. We took him like and back then you didn't have bipolar or schizophrenic or anything like that. So we just
Right.
took him for like that's what he did.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
some people talk to people that weren't there, and some people, you know, did other weird things, you know, and he used to draw on stuff. You know,
Right.
so everybody had their own little twerk.
That's right. Did you ever see
And
any?
I would throw up. I mean, I would chew a piece of gum and throw up. I mean, that
Yeah.
was my thing.
Yeah. Did you ever see anybody like he was in? Did he ever go to a restaurant and draw on something?
Oh yeah, he used to draw. I think I wrote a couple of stories about that too. He used to go and draw on their tables and stuff like that.
You remember any
You know,
specific?
And they wouldn't be happy about it, like
Yeah.
especially with a magic marker because that was hard to get off.
Right.
But like he used to draw. He was always fiddling around. He was always. I think he was very What is the
Manic?
word for it?
Manic?
No, he was. He couldn't keep. He couldn't. He couldn't keep.
He couldn't rest.
Yes, he was restless, like a twitch. Like, you know, it was like he had to be drawing on something or doing, you know,
Did you ever go
doing something.
Did you ever see him? Other than that, I know you the story with he drew on the globe. Anybody like ever like really get in his face and say, you know, really real angry and what if?
Well, that woman that he drew on the globe. I mean, that was a globe in the middle of a room, a beautiful globe in a wooden antique globe, a big, huge, you know, something that was worth probably hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh,
you know?
my God.
And he drew all over it.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's crazy.
You know, and she was yelling. She just was screaming. She just screaming. She was screaming, and I thought, oh shit.
Was that Miss Whitney or somebody, one of her
Yeah.
friends?
That was I think that was I think that was her.
Oh,
I think that was her that was screaming. I mean, later on, I mean, she was fine later on. I mean, about it. But I mean, because I went to the Iditarod, out in Alaska. She was very. She used to go be in Alaska a lot. And
really?
she used to go to. Yeah, she had a lot to do with the Iditarod. I met Reddington, the man that started the Iditarod through her.
Oh, oh,
And I got to ride his dogs and sled. They
oh,
took me out on the dogs and sled and stuff like that,
oh,
and that was amazing. That
oh.
was amazing. But she used to go to the Iditarod all the
Mm,
time, and I think she donated a lot of money to the Iditarod. She was very wealthy.
I see. Yeah.
And then Gilda, the one that I wrote about in your story, Gilda.
Oh, yeah. What's her last name?
Apidal.
Oh, yeah. I looked her up. She was like a real la-di-da.
Oh yes, real lottie da. And I met her through she whenever she came to New York, she used to hang out with Andy a lot,
Uh huh.
and she used to get bored with him though at his parties and stuff. She used to always say to me, "Come on, darling, let's go do something, let's go dance." She loved to go to discotheques.
Right. Did
But she was not the type of person that you could take to, Club 57 or any of those clubs. So, you'd go to Regine's or you go to Le Club or you go to Morocco or Hippopotamus. When Hippopotamus closed in the 70s and it reopened on 62nd Street. So we used to go over there a lot.
Was this pre Jean-Michel? Before Jean-Michel?
It was pre Jean-Michel, and then it went into John. I didn't know Andy when I wrote the story and said that we were sitting at dinner. I didn't know Andy had met Jean-Michel because Jean-Michel was still just a kid that I knew. I didn't talk about Andy Warhol. I didn't talk about Andy Warhol and any of these people. We just did a lot of acid and. And I knew he knew Holly did a movie with Andy and stuff like that, but it wasn't like, oh, let me introduce you to Andy, maybe he could help you out or anything like that. And then Andy turned around and said, well, I got to help this friend out, and he has some pieces of art, and he needs money. So this was before he became famous. Must have been when Andy first met him. And she spent $5,000 and I think got 5 or 6 pieces of art from him.
Huh.
And I don't know whether the refrigerator, but I know she acquired the refrigerator somewhere, and there was a refrigerator in Studio 54 when Steve Rebell had it.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if he drew when he was in the office of Studio 54 on a refrigerator. I don't know how that refrigerator got into Studio 54, but I know that she got the refrigerator door.
Oh.
But I mean, she's passed away now.
Oh.
I don't know. I still think it's in storage.
Yeah. I don't know.
One of her family members has it.
Oh. She must have not been particularly happy if he wasn't famous and Andy touted her to buy a refrigerator door. That must have been kind of strange.
Yeah, well, yeah, but she said it's gonna be. And she said, okay, well, she collected art. She collected thousands of pieces of art.
Okay.
She just went around collecting art. I mean, she had art from everywhere. I don't know. I never went to her storage, but I know through Andy and stuff like that he used to buy for her, tell her to buy stuff. And there was this other couple of art in New York, but she bought art from all over the world.
Did Jean?
I think it all went down to Mexico.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Oh.
I don't know. You can look up her son.
Yeah,
Her son's down there.
Yeah, no, I saw her website. It was in Spanish. Is she from Mexico?
Yes. Well, no, she's not. She's. How did she get down to Mexico? I don't remember.
Oh, all right. I guess.
I don't remember how she got down to Mexico, but I know that she all her art ended up in Mexico.
Did Jean-Michel ever mention to you about her, that he sold her work or anything?
No.
And you didn't ask him, even though you
No.
knew him?
Because, I mean, it wasn't. We didn't just talk about art. Really,
Yeah, right.
I mean, it was like you know, if he wanted to go to an art show or something like that, I didn't want to. I just didn't like the people.
Yeah.
You know, so I just used to say, they're so boring. Most of the people that go there, they go to eat and drink and bullshit.
Yeah, right.
And, you know,
Yeah.
so
I'm surprised Jean-Michel liked it. Did he like to do it, or he just had to do it?
he liked the attention of it, and he liked the fact that he was getting known, and he liked the fact that people were recognizing him and everything. But later on, I think he felt he was being used.
Right. I got it.
At first, it was all very exciting to him.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he had no money. I mean, look, but he came from a family that had money.
Right.
He put himself in that situation.
Right.
But it was cool at that time. I mean, there was a lot of artists who lived on the street. I mean, Madonna lived on the street when she first got there. A lot of people in New York, they went couch surfing all over the place. It was easy.
Yeah. Did you ever meet his parents?
No.
Did he talk about him?
Not that much.
Did he get along with
Not
them?
that much. He talked about his mom.
He
He
did?
loved his mom. I don't know whether he got along with his dad that well.
Oh, he talked
You know,
about his mom, that he loved.
He didn't talk about his sister. I mean, he didn't really talk about. We didn't really talk about his family all that much. I mean, because it was all New York, just crazy, you know, bullshit, having fun.
Right.
And, you know, in a serious conversation, when we were high and stuff like that, and he used to talk about his feelings and things like that, he didn't really discuss that. He more discussed about himself, about his feelings, and about, you know, how he felt and all that type of stuff.
Right. And
you know, but it wasn't really about his parents to that much.
How'd you know he loved his mom?
Oh, he said he loved his mom.
I see.
I mean, he loved his mom. He used to go visit his mom. Quite often.
Was she? I heard she was sickly.
Yeah, she was in an institution or something like that.
Did he visit her in the institution or at?
Yeah, he used to go and visit her in the institution.
How was he? Do you ever see him after that? Like, how was his mood? Or
I don't know. By then we were high, and
yeah, I got it.
you know.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why he got. Maybe that's what it is. He was depressed, and so he got high. Maybe that's why he got high. You know?
You think he was depressed a lot?
Not at first. I think he started getting depressed more and more. I think he I'll have to write to you. I have to write about it. He, like I said that I would for you. He wanted to be accepted.
Yeah.
So much, and he, as I said, he didn't fit in because he wasn't part of the black Soul Train, Don Cornelius group.
Yeah.
And he wasn't part of the Pimps, and you know, he wasn't part of the I'm going to get into movies and I'm going to have an afro because that's what they expect blacks to have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so, you know, he was his own entity. And so, and then being black on top of it, as I said, the one that he really identified with the most was Stevie Wonder, not Stevie Wonder. What's his name that died? The famous one.
Jimi Hendrix?
Jimi Hendrix. Yes, he identified with Jimi Hendrix. You know, I mean, when Jean-Michel was around, it was all Temptations and all of this type of stuff. There wasn't really...
right.
There wasn't... I mean, I even introduced him to Richie Havens, you know, because Richie Havens was out there.
Yeah.
And he was always hanging out in the Village. and he was a good, and Richie Havens didn't have any teeth. He only had like a couple of teeth in his mouth, and he wouldn't put them in because he said it would ruin his singing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he only had a few teeth in his mouth.
That's wild.
Black people to identify with. That's why I took him to like Frankie Crocker, and I would take him to Apollo Theater. But even like my friends in the Apollo Theater, that sang at the Apollo Theater, like Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes and stuff like that. Because I went out with Bernie Wilson for a while, and the Pimps would come back, in the back. I knew Silky the Pimp, who was the biggest, who busted all the pimps actually in New York, because of the fact he wrote a book about how he made all these hundreds of thousands of dollars and he never paid taxes. Oh. And that's when they went after the pimps. And remember the pimps used to drive pimp mobiles around?
Yeah.
Well, because of Silky, they stopped driving their pimp mobiles and they started driving Mercedes because of the fact that they were after all the pimps then.
I see. And you brought Jean-Michel to meet these. Did he meet the pimps?
Yes, to like show him that there's all different types of successful black people, that they're still successful, and that yes, they have a chip on their shoulder. White people, yes, but they still didn't hinder them in their profession.
Right. What did he think of the pimp? Did he ever say anything like they're pimps.
He knew I hung out with. I loved pimps. He knew I hung out with pimps a lot because of the fact is I just loved the way they dressed, and they were so colorful in their suits and their fur coats and their cars with the lights going around inside and their fur. I knew all the pimps in New York. I used to know all the pimps in New York.
Did you meet them through Frankie Crocker?
No, I met them because all the clubs that I went to, like Hippopotamus, they didn't go to the grunge clubs. They went to like Hippopotamus and a lot of the expensive clubs because they had a lot of money. And so I met, once you meet one pimp, then you meet all the pimps because they go to pimp hangouts.
I see.
And then I used to be in seventh heaven because I would be like running from one pimp to the other pimp to the other pimp, asking them questions. And then when they used to talk about, and they used to talk in this Pig Latin. I guess it was Pig Latin, because then the police wouldn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And so I used to love when they did hibby-jibby-jibby. They understood each other, and I was just like, oh, this is so fucking cool.
That's crazy.
My mother used to be so upset with me. And my friends, because they used to go, what are you hanging out with these freaking pimps for? And I said, because I love it. They go get their hair done every day and curled in curlers. And there was this one place down in the Greenwich Village on 8th Street that they used to go to and get their hair done. And you'd see all the pimp mobiles parked outside, and you look through the door, and they'd all their platform shoes would be there. So I used to take him to all those ways, but he didn't fit in with any of those people either.
Right, of course not. Of course not.
And Frankie was so past by that time. His, he used to dress in, $2,000 leather suits.
Yeah, Frankie
like
Crocker.
That.
Frankie Crocker. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Frankie was, a class act.
Right.
But he still was a little twerky. He wasn't a conventional rich black businessman, but he was. He had style about him.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but Basquiat had his own style.
But they got along, right? Him and Frankie, but they got along. He was nice.
He loved Frankie. He listened to Frankie since he was a kid. Everybody loved old black. Every person in New York loved
too.
Frankie Crocker.
Yeah. Let me go back to Richie Havens a minute. How did you know Richie Havens?
Oh, I just knew him from being around. I knew Richie Havens, and he knew everything there was to be about history, about how he would go on for hours. You give him enough cocaine, he would go on for hours about, the black history during Jesus Christ and everything. Because he said he was the first person I heard that said Jesus wasn't white, he was black. And he went through the whole explanation of it. And I just found it so fascinating, and it had to be true because...
Did he tell you that? Or you just...
Who, Richie Havens?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he said everybody we came from black people, which I'm 100% positive we did, because the first remains they found in Africa. So as the continents changed and people started traveling, they started changing their features and their skin color.
Was he playing in the street? Where'd you see him playing? Did he play?
Richie Havens would play anywhere. I mean, whenever he felt like it, he'd play. But he was a very interesting, quirky person. I mean, he was just very. You would look at him and you wouldn't think that he was genius in his mind.
Right. That's so interesting. That really is. Did Jean-Michel ever meet him?
Yes, and he used to sit and listen to him.
He did.
You know, and I said, because I wanted him to realize that white people are not what they see came from black people.
Was Richie Havens at all well known at that point yet?
Yes.
Oh, he was?
Yes.
But even though he was pretty famous, he'd still hang out and just...
Oh, no, he was out on just because Richie Havens wasn't like that. Richie Havens wore old clothes and, you know, and he was very... He wasn't pompous at all.
Right. I
mean, if you saw him on the street, you'd think he was a homeless person.
Right, but he was famous by that time.
Yeah, he was very well known by that time.
Isn't that something? And Jean-Michel, they met once or more than once?
More than once, because Richie Havens was always in the Village. I mean, if you hung out enough in New York, like if you go out in New York, like my day in New York was, you know, if I got up in a reasonable time, like about 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd go out and I'd meet people that I knew on Fifth Avenue, people that I knew down in the Village. I mean, that's how you just hung out all day long, because you were hanging out and you knew people were hanging out, and that's how you socialized.
I see.
Because there wasn't telephones.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't telephones to let people, hey, I'm going to be here. But you knew where certain people hung out.
Right.
You know? And, I mean, if you hung out in Fiorucci's long enough, you would meet a whole bunch of people that you knew.
Right.
If you hung out in Washington Square Park, you'd meet a whole bunch of people. Richie Havens used to like to go to Washington Square Park a lot.
He did?
Yeah, and on 8th Street. He used to like to hang out on 8th Street a lot.
He did?
Mm-hmm.
8th and where? You know?
Huh?
8th Street and where?
8th Street on the west, about, you know, where 6th Avenue?
Yeah.
Where the papaya place was? You know, he would be between there and, because that's where the happening was. That's where all the antique fur stores were. Remember, that was where you would get all the navy jeans and all the antique clothes. And, I mean, it was 8th Street in that area used to be packed.
Did he live down there?
Yes.
Were you ever at his apartment?
No, I didn't ever go to his apartment.
That's so
I
interesting.
used to see Richie Havens just out and about all the time. I mean, he would come over to apartment. Like one time, he came to Errol Wetson's apartment. Errol Wetson, who married Margot Hemingway, I went out with him before he met Margot. When he had the drugstore. Do you remember the drugstore on 3rd Avenue?
No.
It was by Daly's Dandelion and what's the other place? That's where.
Did he come? Did Richie Havens, when he went to a party, did he bring his guitar?
No.
I see. He didn't.
Not all. No. I mean, he would have his guitar sometimes during the day. Like sometimes he would play it in the park and stuff like that.
Oh.
You know, I mean, he just wouldn't take out his guitar and play on 8th Street. You know, I mean, sometimes he would just come and, you know, hang out.
Oh, you mean when he was on 8th Street, he was just hanging like everybody else?
Yeah.
I see. That's really so interesting. That's very interesting.
Jean-Michel, you know, it was just, I was trying to get him to understand that, you know, just being different, like, remember I told you, Holly said, well, I'm different too. I'm a drag queen. I get beat up on all the time because I go out and drag. And he goes, yes, but you could take your clothes off and you're a white person. I can't wash my face.
Oh, he said that to her and you.
Yeah. Yeah, because Holly was saying, well, he said, you elected to be a drag queen. You elected. I didn't elect to be black.
Right.
And I said, but black is a great thing. I wish I was black. I always wanted to be black.
So
You know?
was he upset about being black, or he was upset the way people treated him because he was black?
He was upset because the way people treated him being black and being different.
Right.
They because he was such a different, like he even danced differently. He didn't dance like a black guy. He danced like Bob Marley.
Right. Right.
And I mean, Bob Marley was in at that time, but I mean, it wasn't like, Bob Marley came out and hung out with everybody.
Right.
Bob Marley was, I mean, actually, if he hung around Bob Marley probably a lot more, he probably would have been a lot better than hanging out with Andy. And Andy Warhol was a creep, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you about Andy.
Mm-hmm.
I knew Andy. I told you in the story how I met Andy.
Tell me again how you met him.
Okay. I went to St. Vincent Ferrer in the 8th grade. In the 7th grade, I went to Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary on 33rd Street in 7th grade. But there was a lot of Puerto Ricans, and my mother and I was getting into sniffing glue in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So she put me uptown where I get away from that environment, and she put me at St. Vincent Ferrer in 8th grade. And I wasn't even going to school hardly. But when I was in school, I was very bad. And the nun, and I remember the nun's name now, it was Sister Mary Blanche, used to hit me with books on the back of my head all the time because I was always joking around and stuff like that. And I was always the one with the desk in the front,
Yeah.
and by the... So anyway, when I was really bad, she used to send me to church to pray for myself and to pray for and to clean up the church.
How old were you?
And I was in 8th grade, so
Oh.
I was 13.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
And Andy, so I used to be in the church a lot, hanging out and dusting or doing whatever I was doing, talking to Jesus.
Yeah.
And there was this funny man sitting in there with a peculiar wig, with peculiar hair. And I started seeing him, and I went over to him, and I said, well, what are you doing here every day? Do you pray that much? And he's like, he was joking around with me and stuff. And then he started telling me, who he was and stories about himself and everything in his Andy's voice. Took a long time. But anyway, and he started telling me about drag queens. I never knew about drag queens, and all these people and stuff. And gay and stuff like that. I knew my uncles were gay, but I didn't know there was like a big gay crowd. I mean, I was 13.
Yeah.
And so I used to look forward. I used to be bad just so I could go to church at the time that I knew he was going to be around there. And I think it was like later in the morning, in the afternoon, used to be in the church. And so then one time he said he was going to Central Park. So I go to Central Park on Sundays. I hang out at the fountain. He said, "Okay, I'm gonna come with some of my friends," and he came with a bunch of drag queens and stuff. That's how I met Holly, and that's how I met all the drag queens. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be a drag queen. I want to be this. I want to be that. Like, I want to be just like these people,
Yeah.
And that's when I ran away from home after the 8th grade.
So you ran away from home, and why did you think? But you said he was a creep. How did you find out he was a creep?
Okay, how did I find out he was a creep? So, when you're young, you're impressionable,
Mm-hmm.
and so I thought Andy was like God. I mean, to me, he was like God. It was like Andy Warhol. Wow. So when I came back to New York after I ran away to San Francisco, I came back and I was pregnant, had the baby, and then I left, and I went to Ford, and Ford took me on.
How old were you then?
And
How old were you then?
I was like 15.
Oh, and you
And Andy
found,
was at one of the photographers.
but you found out after a while Andrew was like a famous guy or something.
No, I knew Andy. I found out, yes, because I didn't know Andy was famous. I just knew he hung out with a whole bunch of drag queens. I didn't hear of Andy Warhol. I mean, I didn't
Right.
know Andy Warhol.
Right.
And then he was at a photographer's when I went to a casting, and it was over at the park over there on Irving Place,
Mhm.
the park over there where he had his place.
Mhm.
And so I walk in and I go, oh my God, it's you. And he goes, yes. I said, we're not in church anymore. Now we can talk about everything. And that's when I started hanging out more and more at his place and stuff like that.
Oh.
And I started noticing there was a lot of fucked up people. But at first, I'm still like young. I'm 15, 16. I'm young.
Yeah.
And then I started noticing that there were a lot of people that were not so fucked up when they started knowing him, but then got very fucked up when they were hanging out with him more and more.
Mm.
Like on heroin, and it wasn't so much acid, it was much more harder drugs, like heroin and speed mixed together and shooting it
Mhm.
and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I noticed that a lot of people didn't do very well, like would be passed out all over the place, and then end up fucked up.
Uh-huh.
And it was like he liked to have. See, he didn't have very much of a personality.
Mhm.
That's why he hid behind his camera. And he used to take pictures of everything and document everything. But himself, he made himself interesting looking. But if you talk to him, he wasn't that. I mean, he was very boring. He was boring.
Mm.
So he had a lot of this circus around him. Like, look at the drag queens that he had. Holly got paid $100 to be in that movie.
Mm. Mm. Right.
All the actors got paid. That's why he got shot. That girl shot him,
Yeah.
I think, was because he didn't want to pay anybody. And then he ended up making millions from whatever he did.
Right.
And he used a lot of people. And he, I just think that I think he said that he cared about people. Like Holly, if she didn't have money, she would tell me the next day she had to go out looking for Andy to get money to go home.
Oh.
Because she didn't have any money to go home, and they would give her like $3.
Mm. Jeez. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was like, or he would have to borrow it because he said, "Oh, I don't have any money. I don't have any money on me."
Right.
And it was like, why are you being such a drag? Well, he created it.
I see.
He created this person and then didn't want to take any responsibility for it.
I see. Yeah. And that's what you started seeing.
And that's what I started seeing. I mean, look at the people that he was close to. That one girl that was very, very, very wealthy, she ended up killing herself.
And what did...
What's her name?
Who was that?
That blonde little girl. She came from a very rich family. She ended up killing herself. He hung out with her a lot because she had a lot of connections.
Oh.
But she ended up killing herself. Then look at Candy Darling. Candy Darling ended up. I mean, a lot of people around him died.
Right.
Of overdoses and everything else, and he was still alive. He didn't take drugs. Andy never took drugs.
Uh-huh.
I never saw him high.
And what did Jean-Michel think of Andy through the whole experience? It's funny because you knew Andy before him, but you had nothing to do with the art world.
I didn't want to introduce him. I didn't really even want to introduce him to Andy.
Right.
At that time, I was in my 20s, and I knew, and I didn't want him to get, and we were all getting high on innocent drugs. Well, they weren't really innocent drugs, but it wasn't heroin.
Right. But he ended up meeting Andy anyway. I mean, through his own way.
He meeting Andy anyway. I mean, he was probably doing heroin before he met Andy, because that was all in that crowd at that time. But Andy didn't, and Andy kept, in all these writings, they say, oh, Andy tried to stop him from getting high and all of this type of stuff. Well, if Andy was with him every day, painting and everything, why wasn't he doing more to stop him from getting high?
Did Jean-Michel ever...
Because Andy was making money off of him.
Right.
Because he saw that Jean-Michel...
Let me ask you a question. Did Jean-Michel... Did he trust Andy implicitly, even if he was...
Oh, at first, yes. And then he didn't.
But I heard...
he didn't anymore.
And that was... How come? Do you know why?
Because I think he saw that Andy was using him.
Uh-huh. But when Andy died, Jean-Michel was very upset.
Yes, he was very upset because that was his closest friend.
Oh.
But he didn't talk to Andy for a long time. I know they had an argument. They had a big breakup.
Did he tell you that, or you heard that?
I heard that.
I see. I got it.
Because that was the time that after, I was not hanging around that much. I was in Europe more.
I see.
And stuff like that.
All
but
right.
I know he was broken up about Andy dying.
Yeah.
But the thing is I think he saw everybody just leaving him, like a bit, they, oh, you're so great, you're so wonderful, you're so this, you're so that, we love you. Look, it's like...
You mean they said it to Andy, or they said it to Jean-Michel?
No, they'd say it to Jean-Michel. Look, it's like you join a modeling agency. And at first they don't know who you are. You go in and Tyler who? And then you book your first big job, and then all of a sudden Tyler's on the phone. Oh, we have to give her this casting. We love you, Tyler. You want to do lunch? You want to have this? You want to do that? We love you. And then when the jobs aren't coming in anymore, they don't even answer your call back.
Right. I got it.
And it's that way in art and in...
Yeah, sure. In life.
Acting.
Yeah.
And in life.
Let me say, I can ask a question. Did Jean, I know he left all these. Did he ever do a drawing of you?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Did he ever do Did he ever do a drawing and say, Tyler, I did this for you?
Oh, he would say to me all the time, these are for you. These are for you. I don't know whether, because I'd say, take your drawings with you.
Yeah.
You already ripped up my books. You've already scribbled on everything. Take them with you. And he said, no, these are for you. Just leave them here. And I said, okay, I'm just going to put them away in a box. And then when you want them, you come and take them. Okay, sure, whatever.
Right. Yeah. Did he ever?
I don't want to put all this paper in my pocket. It's going to make my pockets bulge.
Did he ever say, oh, keep them, because one day, he told you he was going to be famous when you first met him, you told me.
Yeah, but he never said to me, keep them because they'll be famous one day.
No. I see.
Because I used to tell him to take them.
Right.
Because to me, they were just scribbled pieces of paper.
Right. I got it. Yeah.
That's why when I found them in my storage again, I didn't know Basquiat. I had no idea that he became that famous.
Right.
Because I was out of that loop by that time. Once you're out of the loop, it's like that world doesn't exist anymore.
It's interesting because I know how famous he is, and people who know him know how famous he is. I'm always shocked how many people never even heard of him. Because people who are not art-centric,
yes,
they don't never heard of him.
No, and I put those drawings away into mashed stuff. So like some of them are really mashed up, thrown in boxes or thrown in between clothes or just thrown in something.
Yeah. And
then, I found these things and I thought, well, let me just see, because I saw Basquiat, I looked it up on eBay, and people were selling Basquiats on eBay, and I didn't know that they were fake or real or what they were, but I saw the prices and I said, well, let me just put them on for whatever. I didn't know that he became that.
Right. So you went on eBay and saw them, but they were all the fake ones that sell for a few $100.
I didn't know they were. I didn't know at that time. I knew nothing about eBay art. I knew nothing about fake art. I didn't know about.
I see. I see.
Because I never went on eBay. I went on eBay to buy stuff.
Right.
Like in New Orleans, I went on eBay to buy stuff.
You never?
I never went to. I never sold anything. If selling Jean-Michel's first pay was the first time I ever sold anything on eBay.
Oh, okay.
I never sold anything before.
I see. And you never thought like to call like a big auction house or anything?
No, I mean, I knew auction houses from when I went out with Adam Williams, but that was Dutch art. That was 17th century art.
Right.
That wasn't. That wasn't.
Right.
Scribble on a piece of paper. I didn't know scribbling on a piece of paper could be worth money.
Right, I got it. I understand. That's so interesting, and that makes sense,
And scribbling, especially on a back of a book or on a piece of
World Book paper on the Guinness book. Yeah, I know.
Or ripped paper. I didn't ever think that was going to be worth nothing.
Right. Right.
I didn't know.
Right. That's so interesting.
And then I started seeing all of this by that Dole guy. Then I started looking at his story. Then after I sold a couple of pieces to Sandy, then I started looking at the Dole guy. Really stuck out in my mind because I thought, how in the hell is Jean-Michel carrying around 2,000 pieces of postcards? Because he would get 10 postcards.
Who's the Dole guy you're talking about?
That Dole that sells on eBay.
Oh, some fake guy or something?
That guy that has said he has that he had got the portfolio on the subway.
Oh, and what you say? You thought it was like bullshit? Like what are you talking about?
Well, because he used to have. He never went out and said, "Okay, I'm going to buy 2,000." When he made those postcards, he didn't have any money. So he was buying 2 and 3 postcards at a time and drawing on. Now, where did he get 2,000 postcards to draw on?
Right. Yeah, of course.
And then he's carrying them around in a portfolio. I just don't see it. I know that somebody said something that he had a book that he lost on the subway and had, 2,000 pieces of. I call bullshit.
Right.
An artist sells, when they're doing postcards, they sell it right away.
Right.
For $2.
I got it.
A pack of cigarettes or for something. They don't all of a sudden have 2,000 postcards.
And he never did that.
I never heard of such a thing in my life.
You never saw Jean-Michel. You saw him. How many would he do? Couple, 2, 3, 5?
Yes. He would go and buy some and then do them. And if he sold them, then he would buy some more.
Do you ever? Go ahead.
He never collect. And then when he got to the point where he could buy 2,000 postcards to paint on them, he was doing big paintings by then.
Yeah. Were you with him when he sold any art, any postcards or anything?
Yes. He used to say, okay, this is going to be a pack of cigarettes. And I go, okay, go in there and see if you can get a pack of cigarettes for that. And he come out smiling with a pack of cigarettes. He says, yeah, he traded me for a pack of cigarettes.
Oh, you mean the store owner?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or, we would be walking by somebody and he says, you want to buy a cool V? He said, well, how much? He says, $2. And, he'd sell them for $2. He'd sell them for $1. He'd sell them for $5, $10. So if someone gave him 20, he'd sell them for $20,
Did he sell because people just thought he was cute and nice, or they liked his art?
He was a package deal. You could have the most beautiful painting in the world and be an asshole, and you can't sell it.
Yeah.
Or you could have a piece of shit and be the most you know, you could sell somebody a shirt off of their back and they'd feel good about it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You know, and he had the whole package. He was funny, he was cute, and he had this art, and he was different looking, you know, and he wasn't some, you know, he was interesting.
Right.
So he went along with the art.
Right, I got you. I mean, it was...
People didn't care. A couple of dollars.
For a couple of bucks, it was worth the show almost.
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
That's so interesting. That's really cool. That's really cool. Because that's what somebody else told me that has saw him sell his art. He was just not intimidating at all. He was very kind of...
Yeah, you want to buy it. If you don't want to buy it, okay.
Right.
If you do want to buy it, you know, okay. So how many dollars do you have on you? You know, and if somebody says, well, I only have a 20, you say, well, I don't have change. And they say, okay, here, take the 20.
Right.
You know, it's like he took whatever he got.
I got it.
And then he would buy more markers or more whatever he got, you know, whatever he got. And then he would make more. But not 2,000. I mean...
You're right. Did he ever... How come he never called his father and said, Dad, I need to borrow $50 to buy art supplies? Do you know?
I think he was very determined. I think, in a way, with his father, he wanted to show his father that he didn't need, that he was going to come back and say, I made it without your help, without you doing anything for me.
Did he ever...
I think there was a bit of a strained relationship there, as far as his father making him, belittling him.
Is that right? Did he tell you that?
No, not in so many words, but it was like, I'm going to prove to my father that I'm going to make it.
I see. I mean, maybe...
Myself.
I mean, like the dad did not abuse, you know, verbally abuse him, but he didn't affirm him.
No. Yes, that's exactly it. And I think because Jean-Michel was a character, was different. We didn't live up to his father's expectations of what a black man should be.
Right.
In the business world.
Right.
And so I think his father sort of, you know, because his father was a businessman.
Uh-huh.
And his father wasn't a reggae person or, you know, and I think he expected Jean-Michel to be this, you know, business person.
Right.
Person.
Right.
And Jean-Michel was anything but that. And I think he wanted to show his father, I could be this person and become famous.
Right. Right. Did he ever talk about being famous and rich or just famous? Did he care about money?
Well, being famous and rich, sort of like he enjoyed the money.
Yeah.
He enjoyed being able to be, you know, but I think it carried, I think the famous bit, probably it was past his expectations of what, I think he saw people, because he became famous, they all wanted to know him, and they didn't want to know him before.
Yeah.
And then when he stopped selling his art so much and stuff, he saw people turning away from him again.
Right.
Because don't forget, the crowd of people that he hung out with totally changed when he got to be well known. Then he hung out with well-known people, you know, more sophisticated people.
Mm.
And that carries a burden, because sophisticated people will only hang out with you for as long as you can keep up with them.
Right.
Or you have something, you know, they could take you to a party and say, this is Jean-Michel, the famous artist. I told you I was going to bring him. But if it was Jean-Michel who hasn't sold any paintings lately, they weren't going to take you anymore.
I see. Because my sense of that he was, no matter how he dressed and everything else, although he looked cool, he was sophisticated.
Yes, he was, because he had his own style. But that carries a burden, because especially in that crowd of people, you have your own style, so where do you fit in as a black person?
I mean, unless you're a famous artist, then you don't.
Now, if he was white and had his own style, that would be different. But because he was black and had his own style, that was like, well, then you had to be somebody to go somewhere.
I got it.
Sort of type of thing.
It makes sense. I got what you're saying. Like we're going to accept you if you're famous and black, but if you're not famous and black, we ain't accepting you.
I said to Frankie one time, because I used to get so pissed off at him all the time about, it was all about his white Rolls Royce and about his $3,000 suits and about all this stuff. And I said to him, okay, Frankie, because he used to complain about me a lot of times because I would dress like in overalls with no T-shirt on, and stuff like that. And he would say to me, why do you dress like that? And I said, because I feel like it. And I can walk into any place I want to. And he says, no, you can't. No, you can't. I said, yes, I can. I've been in a club in overalls with no T-shirt, with no shirt on, and they let me in. I can go in. And he goes, no, no, you can't. And I said to him, okay, Frankie, let's put it this way. You're a multi-millionaire, right? And supposedly, you go to the Playboy Mansion, and you drive up in a beat-up old Volkswagen, okay?
Mm.
And I said, now, you go to the party. Now, would you be accepted to go in and you have tennis shoes on with holes in them and a raggedy pair of jeans, but you're a multi-millionaire? I said, or you go to the Playboy Mansion in a Rolls Royce and you're all glittered up and you don't have a dime in your pocket. Who do you think they'll accept more? Oh, he said the person that's all dolled up in the Rolls Royce and everything. I said, no, they won't, because they'll fish you out in 1 second. I said, the rich person that they'll let in is the person that they know has something to offer.
Uh-huh. Right.
But he thought it was all about you have to show off all the time.
Right.
Because if you're black and you dress grungy, then people will look at you like a homeless person.
Right.
Or they don't want to know you. So he always had to I used to curl his hair every night with rollers.
Mm.
Yeah, like a girl. I used to curl, and he used to sleep with his head up again, because in the old days you put rollers in your hair and then you sleep on the pillow with the back of your head up like that.
Uh-huh.
And then you put mascara on before. I mean, he was really pompous, but he thought because he has to keep up his image.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
Because I used to say, why don't you just wear a pair of goddamn ripped up jeans one day in secret? He said, I will not go out dressed like that. I'm Frankie Crocker. And I said, because you're Frankie Crocker, you could dress any way you want to. He says, no, I can't.
Right.
Because then they'll just look at me as some old black person.
Right. This was a very interesting talk. I'd like to.
But I'll write you more stories about all of this.
I'd like you to. Yeah, I'd like you to write, and like when you went and talk about Jean-Michel's personal feelings. When you remember when you went on the roofs and all that, people would like to know that. Would be cool if, if I had like this conversation, and like a recording, and I put a QR code. See, what you told are things that people, they'd love to hear about. Like if I had, I've never seen this before, but you have a conversation like this recorded and you put a QR code, because there's nothing terrible in it. It's all personal, but nothing.
Yeah, but I mean, you could record, we have a conversation, you could record it. I don't care.
And what I'm saying is.
Because it's better probably if you do, because as I'm talking, I remember things that maybe it won't pop up in my mind.
Right.
It's like things pop up in my mind as we talk,
mm-hmm.
and then they make me remember things.
What about a conversation like this? If I actually I'm just thinking about it now, and you record it, I record it, and I put it in a QR code, and people can actually listen to it. When in the book, there's actually like a thing, and it goes to a website, and they can listen to it. Would you allow that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, good. All right.
I'm not. Yeah, I mean that's fine. I mean I'm fine with that. If it makes it more interesting for people to understand what I mean, the late 70s is when things started really turning around, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had the token black person at a party.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have a whole bunch of black people at a party, but you had 2 or 3 of them, or one. You know, so to show that, you know, wow, we're really on the cutting edge here.
Mm-hmm. You know,
they didn't go and move into black neighborhoods.
Right. Right.
I mean, nobody I knew from that crowd used to go to Apollo Theater. I used to look like the light bulb in Apollo Theater.
Right.
And at Small's Paradise with Will Chamberlain. I mean, it's not like they didn't exactly run up to Harlem.
Right. And Jean-Michel, did he hang out with any black people that you didn't introduce him to?
No, because in that crowd at the church, there were Puerto Ricans. There were some Puerto Ricans, and there was a couple of black people that he hung out with. Just a couple.
I see.
But in that crowd, you know, especially with the Andy Warhol crowd, there weren't very, unless they were drag queens. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, there weren't a lot of black people in that crowd because in the art world, black people weren't accepted then. And black people didn't collect art.
Right.
They started collecting, you know, polyester pants and polyester shirts.
Right.
And if they started making money, then they collect more, you know.
Right.
It's like, they weren't art collectors then.
Right. One last thing. I was just thinking, did you ever have any, been with Jean-Michel and Keith Haring?
Yes.
Did you ever? And how was Keith Haring? You know him?
Keith Haring was gay. He was really gay, and he was like into the party crowd and into dancing and going out and just being gay. And he loved Spanish boys. And a lot of times he would go up to Spanish Harlem to go to clubs because he loved Spanish boys.
Oh.
And you know, so Jean-Michel didn't really like to go to like with me, like he didn't really like to go to gay clubs, you know, per se, because I mean that way it was like heavy leather dancing,
right? And
he was more into his little, you know, his gray band type of stuff, and he listened to all different types of music.
Did you listen to? You ever go there when he was playing with Gray?
Yeah, I didn't like that music at all.
Did you ever go and listen to it though?
For 2 seconds.
Where was it? Do you remember?
He played at Haraz.
Oh.
He played at Haraz.
And right. I liked house music. You know, I wasn't into like. Did you ever go anywhere with Jean-Michel and Keith Haring?
We went to clubs.
I see.
We went to like Arena and Paradise Garage, and I didn't like going to CBGBs.
Did Jean-Michel like Keith Haring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jean-Michel liked everybody.
Oh, okay.
He liked that was his problem. He wanted everybody should like and accept him, and they should have, because he didn't have any mean bone in his body.
Right.
Especially when I first met him, he was just a happy-go-lucky kid that liked to do scribbling.
Right.
He used to call it scroll. Here he goes scribbling.
Right.
Like on meth, people scratch in their bag for 2 hours. Yeah. He would scribble.
And it's interesting what you said, not having a mean bone in his body, but he had anger.
He had anger towards he was angry at the situation where he felt that he was being denied because of his color.
I got it.
And he had to fight harder. Because of your color, you have to fight harder.
What happened?
Oh, if I was with him to get a taxi, then we get a taxi. But if he was by himself, he used to say that he wouldn't pick them up, but I believed it because a lot of my black friends said that Texans won't pick them up.
Right. So if you were with him, you told me if you were all together, what would you do?
If we were all together, I would tell him to go and hide. No, I'd make fun. I said, okay, now you go and hide, and I'll
Oh, you were like busting his chops.
yeah, fellas bust his chops, you know.
Right.
But it was like it was like then I mean, well, one drag queen and one black guy. I mean, you know, it's sort of like so there were taxis that passed us by.
Right. And let me ask you a question. Was Holly Woodlawn, did she have the operation?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
Holly was a man all day long. Holly only got dressed up in drag at night. Holly was a guy during the day.
Is that right?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Holly had never wore makeup, wigs. He dressed in slacks and his, you know, jacket
Did she work?
No. Well, I mean, she waited tables. I think down in Florida.
As a man?
Yeah.
I see. But in New York, she all day. Only when she went out at night, or when she had an interview or something.
Only when she went out at night, or when she had something. You know, she would go out at night and drag.
Why was that? How come she wasn't like that all the time? Do you know?
Because she was a drag queen at night. Now she wasn't. Now drag queens are men during the day, and they go out. Like I knew tons of drag queens that were men during the day, during the week at their jobs, and then on the weekends they become, you know, sister love, or you know, all these drag queen names. But like I had another friend of mine that was Chanel No Way, and the reason why she got that name is because she walked in someplace and they go, honey, where'd you get that dress? And she said, it's Chanel. And they go, Chanel No Way at the thrift shop.
Oh,
and
I got it.
So then she got the name Chanel No Way. But he worked as a Avis rent-a-car person. And because you can't be a drag queen and have a job. I mean, only very few places are going to hire you.
Now, is the drag? Forgive me for not understanding all of it, except that a drag queen who's a man by the day, do they like men or women, as far as sexually?
They liked men.
Okay.
But there are some men that like dressing as women that like women. I had quite a few try to pick me up, you know, and they were really ugly drag queens.
Oh, they were drag queens though.
Yeah,
but
one was a lawyer. One was a big lawyer in L.A. And he said, no, he says, I love you. I want to take you home. And I go, well, are you going to wear the dress? I said, because I'm not a lesbian. I said, I don't fuck dresses. I don't fuck tits. And so he said, no, I'll take the bra and the dress off. You know?
That's so crazy.